this is how I hold my wrist. Can you see there fairly well? Just like, just like that. Kind of like if you're prepared for palm muting at any moment that you need to. So like my wrist is really straight. No, and I'm not actually. How do I say this? When I pick, I hold my pick on a slant. Well, not all the time. If I'm doing something where I want to pluck the string, like, then I just do that. But if I'm planning on picking fast, then what I do is I angle my pick like a knife. Not straight up and down. Obviously, that'd be like madness. But just a little bit so that it kind of rolls around the string. And that might inform you a little about my wrist, the way that is. But when I was learning to pick, or just practicing technique in general, the guys I was watching were um, Paul Gilbert was probably the biggest influence on my technique. I watched Steve Vai a lot, but I don't think I was quite as conscious on technique. And his wrist and arm, it's just very comfortable looking. Luckily, I was young enough to where I wasn't thinking about it consciously. I was just imitating. Which is probably what you were doing with Benson, I imagine, right? So, yeah, for the first, I don't know how many years, I only picked upward, like this. And then I had to work out of that and get downstrokes going. And obviously I didn't use I was just the worst technique when I was young. I was like just ring finger, never pinky. I'd be the guy doing like, instead of, you know, and he'd always just never use my pinky, try never do a downstroke. And it wasn't that conscious, but I was a little resistant towards changing. And even my last greatest change technique-wise probably was when I went to MI. I was picking like here's would be a flat pick, right? I was picking like this, as where Paul Gilbert would pick like this. Does that make a difference? You see what I'm saying? So I was like, my hand was kind of like, had this kind of like this look, instead of this look. See the difference? And I would be able to play. I was playing okay that way, but this, I got jealous kind of because one of my friends was really good at Paul Gilbert stuff, and he was doing it the way Paul Gilbert was, and I was just I just didn't want to change because I already was doing it one way, and the other way was like learning all over, kind of. But I because I was so like green of the fact that he sounded like Gilbert, and I was that kind of mindset back then. It helped me in a way. It was a good role model, I guess. You know, if Paul Gilbert was if Paul Gilbert was saying that smoking cigarettes made him a better player or something, it'd be a bad influence. But if I'm watching his good technique and he sounds good, then it's a good thing. Also, another reason why he did it, well, the reason he started doing it was because he wanted to emulate Van Halen's squishy sound and a more percussive sound. So it was another thing I couldn't do before that. But anyway, that really kind of changed my wrist also. If you notice, like, here's my wrist now. It doesn't look very perverted, right? I mean, it's just kind of a little upward angle. But compare that to this, and you can see that's like perfect angle, really, I think. Yeah, that's really what you want. So there's a Gary Willis video, um, where he talks in great detail. It may have been fairly concise. I don't remember. It may not have gone on forever, but I remember he did a really good portion of his instructional video, talking about your tendons. Bless you. The example he gave would be like if your wrist were like this, right? Worst case scenario. Your tendon goes like this, and it's like kind of like, it's just like almost like a kink in the hose, and it thinks just screwing up your life inside there. And so it's very important then to have your wrist like this, because then it just goes like it's supposed to. Like you're born to do that, for a long time. So, be it this hand or this hand, that's kind of the thing you want to think about, I suppose. Never want it to be. I mean, there was moments of discomfort, like when I remember learning some chords, like this one, especially in F. If it was like, like that chord, I remember. But I solved this a couple ways. For one, you see my wrist here is a little bent, but not very much. Oh yeah? Well, this was the hardest one. Check this out. That was the hardest one, I think, for me that I learned. D minor. Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've written down a few that are probably borderline unplayable. I'm not sure. But I got to work it out because I want to just bust that out. Like, no big deal. Yeah. But anyway, so there was a few other solutions that helped too. Like for example, this one was tricky, right? But when I'm playing it right now, it doesn't feel that tricky. Not just because I practiced through it a lot, but because when I had this guitar built for me, I got a shorter scale length, and I have little girl hands, so like it's a really fat neck, because I like the feel of a fat neck, and it's supposedly the tone is better with a fat neck and everything, and they say the tone is better with a longer neck, just like a longer piano. But rather than a Fender scale length, I went with a Gibson scale length because I was willing to compensate that to be able to play more comfortably with these kind of harder chords with my girl hands. So that may help too. But obviously, if your problem was with your right hand, that won't make a difference. But I think I know what you mean. Well, here's the way I would go about that. If I was, I mean, this Paul Gilbert technique is in terms of like the way your wrist is. It's not gonna. I don't think it's really affects the sound. It just affects your biology or whatever. As far as the tone, if your pick is angled versus flat, yeah, definitely different sound. If I were gonna play, a lot of time when I'm playing, I'm like putting the pick and my thumb between the string, like that, or I'm using my other fingers, or picking over here. And if I'm picking over there, then I'm not really angling it like this. So it's just like a variety, and I don't think you really would have to be conflicted. If there was something you had to play Benson-y-wise that was super fast, either the speed of that line may be a little bit more obscured if you were to angle your pick, but you shouldn't have to. The angling of the pick shouldn't be necessary for your wrist to be straight, I think. Now, I've never really practiced, although I should, but I've never really practiced exclusively flat picking. Like, I've never done my whatever exercises in the past, or like with just the flat picking. I've always kind of angled it, but the hard thing about flat picking is that you get more resistance on the pick. But aside from that, there's not really anything harder. It might be more conducive towards economy picking, which I've never really exploited. If I were flat picking, I guess. If I were exclusively flat picking, economy picking would be more... It'd be very reasonable to do. Anyway, any other questions on it? Well, that's kind of what it's about. I mean, anybody wants to join anytime, and I do it every day anyway, or I'm available every day.